The Notcast, life, love and misery and deep shit.
Do you ever wonder, what the fuck am I doing here? Is this it? Maybe you've got the car, career, house, family and friends, everything that should make you happy, but still there's this tenacious sense of being trapped, stuck, lost, or just a bit bloody empty. Welcome to the Notcast podcast, where two therapist coaches, aka theracoaches, lay bare their psycho-spiritual journey of struggle, strife, and realization in their soul search for the keys to a happier, more fulfilling life.
So, episode 32. How do I tell you I'm done with your shit? 3 steps to speak your truth and find peace.
Ah.
As some angelic light descends on the Notcast.
Yeah, I don't know. That just felt right with the word peace.
We're getting biblical. So, yeah, how do you tell someone you're done with your shit?
Well, I know I really struggle with that. That was the starting place for me. I know this is something that I've struggled with so much all of my life. So I historically have been more used to not speaking my truth. So this is an interesting episode for me. What about you?
Yeah, same. Well, 2 things came up for me. First, I thought this title's vague as fuck. And for me, whenever we do a slightly more vague title, I should say, I often struggle to kind of pull my ideas together. So that's the first thing that came to me. But yeah, but then similar, I thought actually this is something that I've. At first, I was thinking I might sound a bit fraudulent talking to this because this is something that I've struggled with a lot and still can do. Mm-hmm. I'd love to think that I'm open and honest all the time with everybody in every instance, but that would probably be a bit of a lie.
Yeah, no, similar, same. Yeah, this is a work in progress, and I feel like that's why it's good to do this episode. You know, because these are, I think for me, particularly over the last year, it's been a mammoth learning for me, and I've had to step into this shit so many times. So yeah, it feels good to be able to talk about it and put that out there, and for people to know that, yeah, it is one of those things that's a work in progress. It's not easy. I recognize that. It's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I get that. Well, and free therapy for us, right?
Yeah, right. Let's talk that shit out.
Perks of being a coach. So do you want to do some wordery?
Yes, let's do some word magic.
Let's do some wordery. So the first one that I wanted to look up was done. Mm-hmm. So, of food, cooked thoroughly. And when I heard this, I just thought of Jamie Smart being like, God, you guys look cooked. And I was like, oh yeah, well, that's what it means, right?
Yes.
You're done for the day. I'm like, oh, well, that finally makes sense, is why he's been saying that. And the next was no longer happening or existing. So again, for me, that done thing, it's a thing of the past. It's about it being complete, finished.
Yeah. It's
something that's no longer a now thing. Mm-hmm. And so the next I looked at was I'm done as a phrase. And as it's a phrase, I went to my trusty non-standard dictionary, Urban Dictionary.
Love it.
And the top rated definition was this: when you've had enough of your life or a current situation and can't physically or mentally keep up anymore.
Wow.
I thought, yeah, like bang on.
Yeah, pretty much.
Resonate with that.
Pretty much. Yes.
So, but then there were a couple of other bits that I looked at. So the first was find peace. And I was like, well, that presupposes there's not peace. Mm-hmm. And it presupposes not peace from not speaking my truth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, makes sense. And then the tell part of it, well, that also presupposes I'm not telling you. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then the more I reflected on this, I was like, what came up for me, it's the internal battle of like, there's something wrong and I'm unhappy with it, but I'm not telling you. And yeah, what came up for me, that's the place of resentment. And ultimately for me, it's about boundaries and expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It's about like, if I've got this expectation that you should be behaving differently, or you should be doing something differently, or, you know, I mean, in a different context, it could be something else, but let's say, you know, with people for this episode, if I expect you to be doing something and you're not doing it, then I might be unhappy with that. But if I then don't feel I can talk to you about that, then I will keep it in.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't realize that that's what's happening, essentially, I think what it can feel like is like, or at least my experience of it has been, is that you've kind of crossed one of my boundaries. You're somehow breaking one of my boundaries, except I might not have told you that's the case.
Yeah. And I see, that's my struggle with it slightly, because it's that I'm feeling this, I'm done with this, but you might have no fucking idea. Like, and then, yeah, like you spoke to, like, for me, it's always in my head. There's this battle within me. It's like, I really want to be able to say all these things. But then I'm really scared to say all these things.
Yeah.
And then I get angry and I feel resentful. Why can't you see it?
Yeah.
Why do I have to say it? Because that would get me out of saying it. It's like, if you could just see it, then I don't have to say it.
Exactly, right? There's that kind of what I often call the magic door.
Mm-hmm.
The magic door of escape. It's like, if why can't you just read my mind, or why can't you just stop doing the thing without me having to do the difficult thing? That but that means I talk to you, or I tell you, or I be honest, or whatever.
Yeah. Why don't you know?
Well, because what I found that then turns into, and it, like, I've experienced this myself personally, definitely. It's like, it then turns into a rule or a should. It's like, well, you should know.
Yeah, right.
You shouldn't be doing that anyway. It's like, well, basically what I've learned is, if I get to that stage, well, I'm pretty screwed, because now the way it looks is you're in the wrong and you're the one that has to change. And I've got no part of it.
Yeah.
Especially if I believe that, but then I'm still not actually going to tell you that, because then how are you going to know I've got this idea that you should be, like, massive head fuck?
Yeah, no, totally. And I have been in that space so many times. So yeah, I get that. Funny thing is, there's kind of this battle that used to kind of happen. It's like, I really want to speak my truth. And then I've got to that space, and sometimes I'm like, oh shit, this is actually really hard to just really own what I really want to say right now. So that, I think for me, there's been layers to it.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely found, you know, that's why we call it vulnerability, right? When we're speaking our truth, speaking what's true for us, quite often I've found, at least in that context, you could say, like, it depends what your definition of speaking your truth is, but I think in this context that we're talking, it's often something that's, I want to say, kind of, it's intimate, or it's raw. It's something that there is this, I guess there's this perceived possibility of rejection.
Yeah.
Right. There's this sense that if I show you what's real, you might not think it's okay. And then where does that leave me? And I think for me, that's where this belief or strategy, or whatever you want to call it, comes in over the top, which is, okay, well, I won't share that, and I'll kind of maneuver around it, i.e. I'm not going to tell you. But then we get all the rationalizations, the judgments on top, which is like, you shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Yeah, completely.
Because if that's true, I don't have to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I guess for me, when I reflected on this, what came up for me was the reason I struggled with it so much is because what I've seen is, in my mind, people sharing their truth and it becoming confrontational, and it's a battle, and it's like a real, you know, you're a dick. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, okay. And I think my thing, what the story it turned into for me, and I think because I've been in abusive situations, is that if I speak my truth, that's what's going to happen. That's what I'm going to be met with.
Yep.
So for me, but the story was so deep, because it's like, and that's the reason I cannot share my truth. Yeah. Because that is what would happen. But a part of that was also a story that kept me kind of in a certain place, because obviously not every experience is like that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the bind that we can get into. I know I've experienced similar myself. Like if I suppose what came to me as you were talking is that's not sharing your truth, that's sharing your projection, right?
Yeah.
But then for me, that kind of thing becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if I've got in my mind that you're the bad person, you're doing something wrong, and I'm annoyed at that, and I've got a right to be annoyed at you, then of course if I try and talk to you about that, it's going to come out like that. And
Yeah.
what's the likelihood that they're going to respond kindly, nicely?
Yeah. Very low.
Well, not all the time. Sometimes you do get those kind, compassionate people who take it, but it's common, I think, for somebody to be like, at least some level of, what's your fucking problem?
Yeah. Right.
But then that confirms the thing I was afraid of. See, I can't bloody talk to you.
Yeah. And this is why I shouldn't share my truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would put myself in those situations, actually, that would fulfill that prophecy and take me back into, and this is why you shouldn't share your truth, Amy.
Yeah.
Because it's not. But then it also put me in that place of it's not valid enough. Right. It's like nobody wants to hear your truth. Your truth provokes this in people. And it's like, yeah, so just giving that away and not seeing that that's the other person's shit, not mine.
Yeah. Well, and I think that kind of, that seeing that's the other person's shit, that for me is what can be the challenge, because I know I've been in relationships before where the other person was, for lack of a better word, what I would say is quite triggerable. And it started to feel like however I would phrase something, if it was a certain time or a certain thing, it was likely not to be received well.
Yeah.
If I'm already running that stuff in my head about how the other person is and how, essentially how I'm, how do I put this? How I'm going to end up being defensive about it, then it's just going to end up buttons on buttons, right? I think it can be difficult to know, is this them? Is this me?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess my measure for that now is how it feels to me within. And that's the thing I have to kind of slow down enough to be able to kind of be with. Because as soon as there's a shift in me and it's like, okay, this doesn't feel good to me, then I know that it's stopped being about me. It's stopped coming from my truth now. And I'm in defense mode or attack mode. And it takes time to get there.
It's interesting you say that about defense and attack mode, because that's something I didn't used to see, and I guess I can still get caught out by it. When I was being defensive, actually, it felt justified. Yeah. I didn't see it for what I do now, which is like, oh, I'm obviously insecure. I've been, being insecure, something has triggered me into this threatened state. Before it seemed like, yeah, but of course I'm like this, and this is okay because you're being like this. And if you would stop being like that, then I would be able to calm down.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely been there.
So do you want to do our points?
Oh, yeah. Let's do this.
You or me first?
You can go first today.
Okay.
Oh, I love it. Just the look on your face. That was lovely.
So, my first point then. How is this about me?
Okay.
So this is kind of what we were talking about, right? It's I find it's easy to, if I'm annoyed at somebody or I've got something that I think they're doing wrong that's a problem, it's easy for me to project and make that, to project my stuff and think it's about them. And that the challenge for me here is that like when I'm doing that, it never looks like I'm projecting. It looks like it's really about them and that they just need to bloody well stop. But I guess the other question for me here is like, how am I the one with the problem here? And I don't mean that as the blame game. I know we talk about that a lot, not playing the blame game, but it's like, I'm the one that's annoyed. How is this actually about me and my issue rather than them? Or another question like, what am I expecting? So what comes to mind here, like for me, a real simple one that I've experienced a lot in the past is like, if I text someone or email them or whatever and they don't email me back.
Yes.
And I can get up in my head about like, they should email me and I'm expecting this and this isn't right. And all these rationalizations, justifications, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels absolutely like I'm justified in that and that they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But really, if I'm really honest with myself, that comes down to my expectation.
Yeah.
It's my, if you like, it's my expectation that's misaligned with reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the fact that it's right or wrong. It just is.
Yeah.
And if I play the right and wrong game, well, then I get annoyed. And that's when I then want to give them what for, or maybe not give them what for. I want to stay quietly resentful and bitter about it.
Deep.
Yeah.
Deep.
Or maybe wait till they email me and then I'll be like, you can wait 48 hours for my reply. Damn it.
I love that. I love that game.
But that's the thing. It feels like a good game at the time, right? But it's like at the end of the day, like who wins?
Yeah. No, absolutely. No one. Well, in my experience, no one wins. No one wins. And I used to play that game a lot.
Yeah.
It's just like, I feel like there was something in me that needed to kind of shift to not play that game anymore. And it's just like, fuck it. Like, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
What difference does it make? Yeah. So I hear that. I like that. I like that. And it bounces straight off my first point, which was own your shit.
Own your shit.
Very similar. Very, very similar. Just said differently. No, for me, it's really important for me when that happens, when I'm in that space, for me to work through it first and really understand it rather than just take all of it and go and dump it on somebody else. So kind of for me, it's really important to walk through, what am I seeing? What's going on for me? Like you said, how am I, like what part am I playing in this? You know, and really like owning it without being in that space of wanting to go. I'll try and sit with myself and go, okay, if I work this conversation through my head and I can only use I and not you, then how is it different? Right. So if I can only use those I statements, then it lands very, very differently in my mind. Then it's like, oh no, that's about me. That's not about them. And so I kind of work through it like that and own it. And then I sit there with like, this is, I feel, I want, I need. You know, and then that for me is a really good way of differentiating like what's my shit and what's not and where I'm coming from. And it helps me to deal with those feelings of resentment or judgment or justification, all of that stuff. So I can remove it because I really want to be owning it. Because for me, when I'm receiving that kind of conversation, that's how I want it to come across. It's like, I don't want it to be a you thing. I want it to be a I this, because that makes more sense. And also when I'm having that conversation, that's where I want to be. I want to be able to own that and say, I feel like this, I want this, I need this, rather than it just coming out as a rant.
Yeah, I agree. A telltale sign for me is that, you know, when I think the other person needs to change.
Yeah.
Or more specifically, I guess, when they kind of have to change, when I need them to change, when they must change, when it's the right thing that they change.
Yes.
And I love those, you know, that the way you phrased it about the I want, I feel, I need. Because that was my second point, like ask for what you need and bring it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it talks to, I think I really learned about this first, Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication, which I always thought was quite ironically titled. It's like, I didn't think communication was violent until you put the fucking idea in my head, but all right. But he talks very much to that kind of stuff about like, bring it back to you, how you're feeling and what's your request of the other person. Because like you talked about, for me, it's about owning that. It stops making it, and that doesn't necessarily mean I'm not, that I have to, I guess how I used to see it before was otherwise it felt like either they change or I'm helpless and stuck with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And for me, there's, and for me, there's a third way, and that's I take some responsibility here. I say how I feel and I make a request, and they might say no, but then what can I do?
Right. Yeah. At least for me, that provides clarity now. It's like, okay, because then you can create something else from that spape. But without knowing, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I found this when I was a project manager. I know I've talked about this before, but when I first got the job, it was like, all right, so I just have the plan. So I just make a list of the things people do. They do them and I tick them off. Awesome. Oh, no. Does not work like that. I tried to make it work like that. It did not work like that.
Yeah.
But of course, then I would get annoyed and frustrated with people because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this was where I started to learn this lesson really in quite a big way, because what I had to start doing was look at, well, how can I show up differently? Like, okay, I'm annoyed they're not doing the thing still needs to be done. So yeah, what if I'm part of this equation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, completely. And I think that's, for me, it's a place to start. That is definitely something I've learned over a lot of time, and something I really resisted at first because I didn't want to do that. But yeah, that's for me the starting place. Was that your second point?
That was my second point.
I'm on it today. Okay. So this one was an interesting one for me. And I really was looking at my process here. And for me, it's like, make it simple. Because looking at this, and actually it was interesting because I did a video with someone yesterday where we were talking about emotional hijacking.
Okay.
And when I'm in that situation where I have to speak my truth to somebody, instantly I'm emotionally hijacked. That's my first experience of that situation. Therefore, I've lost the connection to my thinking, and I'm in emotional response. And my emotional response falls into fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And like my whole body reacts to it. So, and I used to really get taken in by that. And then it was like, I just can't do it. And it would just be really, really shaky. And I would feel like I've completely lost my power and I wouldn't be able to say what I really wanted to say. So I've had to really take that process and simplify it and really understand. So I will make bullet points. I really try to slow it down, and really spend that time even saying it out loud, talking it out loud, so that I can hear it myself and work on it on that level. So for me, it is about like, simplify it, make it as easy for yourself as possible, understand how you work and use that to your advantage. Like in terms of being able to speak what you want to speak. Because honestly, I used to get so stuck in that situation. That's what it would feel like to me. And what I didn't realize was happening is that my whole emotional self was taking over, because I'm going straight into my story about they could potentially attack me, get confrontational, they're going to hate me and all this stuff. So I'm just having this bodily reaction to it and not really understanding what's going on. So, and I know that other people may land in that space as well. So it's like, and with emotional hijacking, it's like a 6 second, like, for it to dissipate. So it's really like, take that time to slow it down and know that you don't just have to kind of spew it all at the same time. Like, go slow at the space and pace that feels comfortable for you. Make it okay for yourself, because I know that this can be really, really difficult. So yeah, that is my second point.
Cool. Yeah, a couple of things came up for me while you were talking about that. The first, when you were talking about like writing it down, I thought, sounds like practicing it. And I thought, yeah, actually that makes a lot of sense. Like I wanted to say like, I don't think I've ever done that, but actually I probably have. Probably just done it in my head rather than write it down. But yeah, I do think anything like that feels scary, any kind of rehearsal or preparation to me makes sense. I mean, assuming it's like the kind of rehearsal where I'm doing that with the intention of having the conversation rather than just having the argument in my head go round and round and round, actually with no intention of saying it. Yeah, no,
not the second thing, definitely the first thing.
Very, very different things.
Yeah, I think the writing it down thing for me is also, I would often walk away from conversations like that because I was so in this emotional kind of space and reactive within me. My whole body's going, that there'd be things that I would forget. So really that for me is as well. It's like, if I can bullet point on my phone, like the key things I really want to say, so that I ensure that they're said, because it's the harder things that I was less likely to put forward.
Gotcha.
And then I'd be disappointed when I would walk away, and it'd be like, fuck, I didn't say the thing I really wanted to say.
So I guess where I'm coming, where my mind's going is like, I think ideally we want to get to a space where we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Right? Where you just turn up and you trust yourself to
Absolutely.
to just speak and know you'll work it out and know you're okay.
Yeah.
But I also think sometimes that can be a journey. I mean, I'm definitely a lot better at being open and honest and having difficult conversations with people.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I could still be better, but I'm better than I was, and I'm better than I was because I practiced it.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me. Like now I can show up in a conversation and I've got that trust in me. And I know I can slow it down in the moment because I know what's happening to me. I know what's going on. So I can soothe, and I'm coming at that space with love for myself and the other. And I think when I started this process, it definitely wouldn't have looked like that. So yeah, for me, it's really about showing that compassion to yourself and giving yourself what you need, right? Because a big part of this is I'm asking for what I need.
Yeah.
So it's like, give yourself what you need, whatever it is that makes it possible. Because I think the flip side of it is it would become impossible for me. Then I would say it's not possible. I can't do it. So it's like, make it simple, make it possible.
Yeah, I like that. And for me, like that speaks to, what I often talk about as in terms of it's a turn towards decision to do something about it.
Absolutely.
Rather than that staying stuck with having the argument in my head, basically hoping that they'll change.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, what's the step I can take towards doing something about this?
Yeah, completely.
So my third point then.
Mm-hmm.
My third point is hear them out.
Like it.
So for me, this is about what's their side of it? It's about being curious about that. Mm-hmm. And I say that because I think it's so easy to essentially believe our own bullshit about what they've done wrong and how we're right and that's not okay. And it's all that projected stuff, which I find is often a reaction to our internal fears and stuff, all the stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And for me, going in with the intention to get the other person's side of the story, to listen to them in a curious way rather than accusational way. Yeah. I think it can help two things. It can help dissolve some of those ideas we have, but then it can also increase the connection. I mean, I remember specifically, like, again, going back to the project manager example, I remember we used to have these calls with some people over in the States. And I remember there was one person who seemed to be just really difficult. And of course, I can be quite difficult at the same time. And I was very difficult back then. And we just seemed to be at loggerheads. And I went, I'd flown over there once, and I remember actually getting in a room with the guy and talking to him, and then hearing his side of what was going on and just connecting over that. And it was suddenly like, this makes sense. You're not the douchebag I thought you were.
Yeah.
And then I found myself coming back and defending the guy to everybody else who thought he was a douchebag. And it's like, we've just projected all this shit based on like the snippets from the conversation that we hear like once a week. Actually, there's more going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, hear the other person out and don't assume that what you're seeing and what you believe is the complete truth, I guess.
I love that. I really, really do. And I feel like that's really, really important. And I feel like I used to be frightened of that because it would be like, oh my God, and what are they going to say? And it might be scary. But actually what I found is exactly that. It dissolves so much. And there'll be moments where it's like, oh, it was a misunderstanding, like because it's not been spoken, or I'm just assuming something, or and it's I feel like that's really, really important. I feel like that's a really important space to be able to get to.
I think the prerequisite though is to do the work that we were talking about beforehand about like owning it. How is it about me? Because otherwise that can look like I'm going to hear you out, but actually I'm going to hear you out so I can tell you that you're wrong. No, not that. Yes, I'm going to listen really, really well. I'm going to tell you all the reasons why it's not right. Yeah, which is not quite the same thing.
No, that's not the same thing. We are not saying that. Oh, I love that. Love that. Okay, is it my third point now?
Here's your third point.
Okay. What needs to heal for me to be able to speak my truth and be okay with that?
Tell me more.
Okay, so for me, there was the people pleasing that got in the way. It was a relationship with myself. It was the lack of love that I showed myself. And it was a shit ton of insecurities.
Right.
So for me, it was like really sitting with that and naming those things, like what is going on for me that makes me believe I'm not capable of sharing my truth.
Yeah.
And really working on those things. Because again, as we always do, for me, it's about me. It's like, you know, why am I telling myself that it's not okay for me to share what is in my heart? And it's like, why is that not okay? But it wasn't okay to just be me. So how is it ever going to be okay for me to be able to share my truth when I couldn't even say it to myself?
Yeah.
So for me, the work around it is really, really important, because it's like, how can I tell you my truth if I'm not even connected to my fucking truth?
Yeah.
So for me, that is central to being in a space where people can share their truth in the way that we're talking about, right? Without it being defensive. It's like, how can I show up vulnerable to this and make that okay?
Yeah.
But that means meeting myself in that space first.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I love that.
Yeah, that's my third point.
Well, and for me, that points to the stuff we started talking about to begin with. For me, like if I'm looking outside of myself and I'm angry or I'm blaming or whatever, then for me that's a reaction to my internal stuff. And I found from personal experience, when I'm focused outside, I'm not aware often of the inside stuff. I'm not aware of the stuff about me. It really looks like the outside stuff. And
Yeah.
so for me, that's the first thing to be aware of. If I can make that switch inside, then I can do what, you know, you're talking about, what actually needs to heal. But I've again, from personal experience and from working with people, that's often the most difficult step, because to make that switch to go, oh shit, you mean I play a part in this? You mean this is about my uncomfortable stuff? It's like, oh fuck, now I have to look at that uncomfortable stuff. And that's kind of been why I've been avoiding it.
Because I don't want to look at that shit. Yeah. But that's where the gold is. That's where it is.
When the gold got to face the dragon.
Yeah.
So have you got any other points from your list of 13? Now 10 more, I guess, that you want to...
That want to share, of course.
You wish to share?
Of course. My intention is love.
My intention is love. Tell me more.
This has been over the last year in particular for me, as my own journey has kind of progressed. And I've realized that sometimes in those conversations, what I've brought is a lot of fear and resentment and things that I've just held on to. And it is a attack defense situation then. Like one person, it kind of switches from you're attacking, I'm defending, you're defending, that kind of thing. And as I've worked on my journey to love, it's become a lot more, well, it makes a lot more sense to kind of go, okay, if I hold love and my intention is love, then how can this conversation be different?
Yeah.
You know, so for me, it's about looking at the motivation behind the discussion or what I need to say and where that's coming from. And if it's not really coming from love or a loving place, then I need to look at myself.
I love that. I love that, because actually that actually follows nicely on to my one of my backup points, which is don't live out the finger-pointy fantasy.
I love that. Everybody loves the finger-pointy fantasy, though.
Well, because that's for me, it like, to link the 2 points together, like there's that sense of, you know, I'm going to give them what for and tell you how much of an arsehole you are and you need to do this. And I think the sense that we get from that is that release of the anger, the resentment, the dopamine hit, whatever it is. And And it's that Hollywood movie in our head where they receive it and they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Or, somehow we win and we're like, yes. And that's never been my experience of actually what happens.
No, I second that. I've never had that. I've never fucking had that.
I mean, I've sometimes felt good saying certain things, but it's like, it's never lasted. And the long-term goal is, rarely is the person ever turned around and it's resolved it, I guess. And it's because, coming back to your point, that's come from a place of righteousness, from a need to win, but beneath that, a place of hurt and fear.
Yep.
And that's why I love what you talked about. If about your intention being love, because if my intention is love or connection or curiosity or to somehow make this better, I'm not going to come in to try and tear you a new one. I'm going to come in to try and understand what's going on for you and resolve it.
Yeah, completely. Love it. Okay, I'm going to go with one more.
Of course.
It's a muscle. The more you practice, the easier it gets.
Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I push myself to do, even in the smallest ways now. It's just like, just be open to it. Just be open to speak my truth wherever I can. Mm-hmm. And it's about giving myself that permission to be fully me.
Yeah.
And not blaming outside circumstances, because it used to be, well, I can't speak my truth here because of this or this or this or this. And actually it was just me being frightened of speaking my deepest truth into the world on every level. And now I challenge myself to show up like that every single day. Like when people ask me, how are you? I tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Caveat.
Well, it depends who it is, to be honest. It does depend who it is. Yeah. And being truthful to myself, like in every situation. And honestly, I can only say that, it is like building muscle, because I'm so much more used to it. It's okay. Like I've given myself permission to be all of who I am. So it follows that, therefore I'm speaking my truth a lot more. But the more you practice it, the more you're able to just show up like that every single day, the easier it becomes. It's not such a mountain.
Yeah. I love that. And I agree 100%. And on two things. One, it is a muscle. Once you do it more, it becomes easier. It becomes something that second nature. Mm-hmm. But also in terms of the way I would phrase it, it's alignment with ourselves.
Yeah.
If I'm keeping this stuff inside, I'm resentful and because I'm scared of sharing it, my inside me is not aligned with my outside me. Yeah. And that, in my experience, that doesn't feel good. Like it's a complete, like, I want to say, clusterfuck of our boundaries, right? Whereas if someone asks me how I am and I can own that and tell them, then I don't feel I have to hide anything. I'm not trying to create some split persona. There's just all that kind of emotional management shit goes away.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if that truth in the moment really is, I don't really want to talk about it right now. But at least that's being able to speak your truth and go, okay, I'm not okay. I'm not just saying I'm okay. I'm saying that, I'm potentially not okay, but right now is also not a space where I want to talk about it. And I feel like speaking the truth to yourself is the first step.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and again, I know we've talked to it, but for me, that's the scary bit. Mm-hmm. That's the scary bit in doing that. But I've personally found the payoffs are worth it.
Yeah, completely. And I guess that's the thing, right? It's when you experience it. Well, when I've experienced it, then I've realized what the payoff actually is. And what it's actually done for me to be able to have those conversations with people, no matter how frightening I've thought it was in the moment. But the payoff is fucking huge. It's like I get to live in a space where it's real and it's truthful and I'm not hiding from myself or other people. So it's the payoff is massive.
Well, and what I've learned as well is that the more I've learned to be honest with myself and with others, not just in practicing that as just practice, it's helped me calibrate then in a way, so that then if I do essentially, if I do get a negative response from somebody,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier for me to then tell, like, was that me? Did I drop a ball there? Or no, that's totally about you and your bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I'm no longer fearing that response. I've actually got real world experience of, oh, hang on a minute. No, I've shared this with 3 other people and they were fine and you're losing your shit. So
Yeah.
hang on a minute.
Yeah. It's the only way to know, right? It's the only way to know is to do it.
Yeah. Real world experience.
Mm-hmm. Completely.
So any closing thoughts?
Of course.
Hit me.
So here we go. You matter, so honor yourself. Your truth matters, so honor your truth. Know that you can only control yourself. So how somebody responds to your truth is their shit, not your shit. Peace is knowing that I am being authentic to me. Peace is knowing that I am allowed to share my truth. Peace is giving myself full permission to be all that I am. Peace is knowing that your shit is not mine to carry. So challenge yourself to speak your truth to at least you today.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I love that. So my closing thoughts for how do I tell you I'm done with your shit? When you're done with someone's shit, ask, where is this coming from? Look to your needs, boundaries, and expectations. Bring it back to you. And always remember compassion for both you and them.
Love it.
Awesome. So 32 episodes.
Yes.
Done and dusted.
Whoop.
You've been listening to the Notcast podcast, Life, Love, Misery and Deep Shit, with your TheraCoach hosts,
David Bird.
and Amy Dave.
David is a transformative coach and hypnotherapist who guides his clients on a journey of self-exploration and transformation to smash the shit out of their mental stumbling blocks and send their emotional baggage packing, helping them to get back in the driver's seat, create a more powerful, loving connection to life, and unleash onto the world their bright, shining light of authentic give-a-fuckness. You can connect with David at his website, dbch.co.uk. That's dbch.co.uk.
Amy is a transformative spiritual and self-love coach and therapist who takes people on a powerful journey towards self-love and personal transformation. She empowers her clients to discover the truth of who they really are, their true purpose, and the truest expression of themselves, whilst enabling them to navigate life and its challenges with ease, grace, and above all, love. Create relationships that rock their world and let go of the toxic shit that holds them back. You can connect with Amy on her Facebook at facebook.com/amy.dave11. That's ami.dave.11.